Optional plays a very important role. You want to get out of UPSC, you have to understand this. Whatever is your option, you've got to be in the top 1% or top 5%, for all the different categories put together. In your anthropology optional, you just see to it that, by December, you're basically done and dusted with your option. ये 5 महीने में क्या लिखते हो does not matter one bit at all. The only thing that matters is how it has turned out by December, and generally there'll be a gradual sort of a trend. And ऐसे trend नहीं होगा. In anthropology, these are actually technical. That means they have a specific meaning. What is culture, what is society is very specific. Sometimes आपको लगेगा कि आप कुछ पढ़ रहे हो, but you're forcing it down your paper. It's just not a natural kind of flow. But as an anthropologist, you're developing that ability. Look at the world through anthropology. Try to get multiple readings done rather than एक attempt में हम पूरा का memorize कर लेंगे. ठीक है? It doesn't work that way, at least for 99% of us. It cannot be that you guys are good at optional, which is a higher level kind of a subject, and prelims में you're having some kind of a technical or difficulty. ठीक है? Prelims also is not only about knowledge. Knowledge, of course, is important, but it's also about understanding the nuances of the exam. Instead of asking, why are you like this? Why are they backward? An anthropologist is basically asking, why does this practice exist there? What is the context behind it? And what does this practice mean to the people who are practicing it? Just see to it that whatever is your material, and we will discuss, you can tell me your material, stick to that material and just develop the ability to write answers. Welcome to all of you. See, the road to Labasna, agar aap dekhoge, it actually goes through your optional. Now, by now, most of you would have realized this, right? If you have written mains before, or if you have any friends who have written mains before, if they're selected, non-selected, you will know ki one thing that would have been a difference, and that is generally their mains ka score, which is primarily from their optional. Okay? So selection or non-selection depends on what? It really depends on, your optional ka score. Sometimes, you'll have somebody who's selected, in some years they may not be selected. ठीक है, वहाँ पे also if you look at the papers, ठीक है, GS plus SA में उतना difference नहीं होगा, ठीक है, but optional में it might have dropped, and that is the reason why this year they got selected, next year they did not get selected, or vice versa. Optional plays a very important role. You want to get out of UPSC, you have to understand this. Whatever is your option, you've got to be in the top 1% or top 5%, for all the different categories put together. इसके बाहर, in any optional you will not see scores. Even the most scoring options, your mathematics and things like that, give you a lot. Okay, at the same time, they also don't give much at all. Okay, top 1% to top 5% आपको रहना है. ठीक है? Generally in optional, it is basically at a master's level kind of paper. ठीक है? It's GS तो all year आप पढ़ते हो. ठीक है? And it is mostly, current events of the year, newspapers, basic books of school level, right? So optional is going to be at a higher level. It demands a more formal, professional kind of answers, more in-depth, more breadth also. So for this, it is very difficult to go and be able to deliver that and get to be in the top 1%, top 5%, post prelims. बहुत मुश्किल होता है. Not that, students have not done it. Many students have done quite a bit. But I wouldn't say that those are your examples that you have to follow. ठीक है? Because that's not ideal. Okay, everything, all the stars have to be aligned. You have to be mentally very, very, emotionally, so strong. Oh, you don't care at all. Either of these things you should be. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, ये पढ़ना है, ठीक है, पढ़ लेते हैं. Okay, what is the big deal? But if you're a person who cares so much about that particular mains का attempt, and you're like, अरे यार ये वाला question नहीं पता, and you start freaking out. So prelims to mains में generally it's not ideal time. Okay, whoever has come in as one of the toppers post June, ठीक है, वो मेंटेन करेंगे. हमारे अभी का प्रोग्राम ऑल्सो इट इज लाइक दिस. पीपल हु हैव कम इन विद एन एडवांटेज, दे आर ट्राइंग टू मेंटेन दैट. सम आर बेसिकली कमिंग इन वेरी वेरी क्लोज. ठीक है, बिकॉज ऑफ देयर डिसिप्लिन, नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ एनीथिंग एल्स. ठीक है, दे आर लाइक ऑलवेज देयर, ऑलवेज प्रेजेंट, ऑलवेज राइटिंग, ऑलवेज सबमिटिंग, वट एवर इज बीइंग आस्क्ड ऑफ देम दे टेंड टू डू. सो दे बेसिकली आर कमिंग एंड कैचिंग अप. अंडरस्टूड ना? ठीक है, बट जनरली somebody who comes with a lead, you're safe. Or relatively safe, but there is no safe. You never know what the other person is doing and how hard they are working, especially when it comes to optional. But relatively it is. You understand now? But in case you come in at a not a very high level, then it's almost like a whole prelims ka clear kiya, but it may not matter as much. Okay, you will get a chance when you clear your prelims. एक दिन होगा. ठीक है, some of you might have written, some of you may not have cleared, some of you, but clear हो जाएगा. That's the hope, right? So 2027 में you do everything the right way, you're going to clear your prelims. 13,000, 14,000 people को select करते हैं. That's not that difficult, to be honest. ठीक है? And once you get through that, उस साल mains के लिए you make it count. Whenever that prelims का है, जब chance मिलेगा, you want to ensure that you get through your mains and get a rank, whatever is the rank. ठीक है? And the reason I say this is, prelims we know कि whatever happens, just be ready. Okay, so ensure that your mains ka this thing is going to count, and don't do it for experience or dekhte hain kaise hoga and things like that. It's extremely stressful, those 2 to 3 months. Done now. So this is basically the message here. So what you want to do until December is you want to finish your optional, whatever is your optional. यहाँ पे it is all of you are here because it is your anthropology का day. And anthropology का day में you just ensure anthropology का optional. So in your anthropology का optional, you just see to it that by December you're basically done and dusted with your optional. ठीक है, वरना even prelims के time में I'm just telling you from all the student experiences. ठीक है, you will feel कि मतलब even if I clear prelims, what is the point? ठीक है, मतलब क्या करेंगे, कैसे होगा, ठीक है. एंड देन एक दो बार होगा तो मतलब यू स्टार्ट ऑटोमेटिकली थिंकिंग कि माय somebody saying plan B, somebody saying plan C and things like this. You don't want that, ठीक है. बट नाउ अभी के लिए 2027 के लिए you can't even think of anything else. And the reason is इतना टाइम है, okay, it's a lot of time, okay. You cannot take a wrong step because इतना टाइम है. Even if you take a wrong step, there is still time to sort of mend it, to fix it. So one thing that I would actually say is don't think that, abhi where you are matters. It does not matter one bit. The only thing that matters is where you are going to be in December. You understand, no? Okay? But if you think that, I will start writing, I will start doing once I feel perfect. Okay? Can't happen. Think of normal skill sets, right? You want to learn, a violin. Okay? You can't say that, I'll start playing the violin once I become good at it. Okay, you have to play the violin when it sounds awful to your ears and to everybody else until everybody says ki please stop, I beg of you. And the same people later say ki matlab play something na, okay, it's so quiet here. Okay, but you have got to play that awful, the just not in sync wala keys a lot until you get better. Same thing, you want to be a cyclist, okay, you are not expecting that you're going to be a cyclist who's like Olympic level kind of a cyclist. Okay, you're going to be a cyclist pehle nahi girna hai. Okay, and then you have to be able to ride for long duration. Then you have to be able to sort of ride, strong hills. Okay, you have to have strong legs that you're able to climb hills for long duration. It's a long process. You understand? Writing is also the same thing. Okay, so in any of these things, please don't think that you're going to write good answers. But what is more important is to write answers. You understand? Now, I want to emphasize this, and if possible, likh lo kahin pe. Okay, it is not about writing good answers. It is about writing answers. Good, bad, ugly, great, all those things only matter what it is in December. So until December, so whether it is July or whether it is September, August, September, October, November, ठीक है, ये 5 महीने में क्या लिखते हो does not matter one bit at all. The only thing that matters is how it has turned out by December, and generally there will be a gradual sort of a trend. And ऐसे trend नहीं होगा. It will be like this, like this, like this. You will not see any improvement for a long time, and suddenly in December it will basically just go for a spike. ठीक है, you feel कि I feel like I can write on something. I'm telling you this with experience, from my students in the past years, and also some students from QEP Plus abhi bhi. ठीक है, and डरे हुए थे, and now they feel कि मतलब they are like kind of feeling invincible. ठीक है, of course we don't want to get anybody overconfident because that can actually backfire. ठीक है. So how we are going to start this is that they've given us a particular format. Okay, jahan pe I'll do a little bit of discussion in the beginning, and I think that discussion will be important in the beginning because just to get you started. Okay, suddenly if somebody asks you to write, okay, it's going to be a little harder. So I think maybe all the way till maybe till September. Okay, it might feel like I'm just not developing that rhythm wala thing, but just stay consistent, and after that I think it'll just become part of your daily routine. Kuch na kuch so likhna hai, twice a week, thrice a week, 4 times a week, whatever it is that we do. Okay, until then just try to get it back into the rhythm of anthropology. Most of you are going to be starting at a 0. Okay, you might be at a 10, 20, whatever it is. Okay, but think that you're starting at a 0. Please don't expect to be at a 90, 99 immediately. Okay, so we'll just wait and then do that. Now I have the schedule that is pulled up here. So in the beginning we are starting with socio-cultural. Okay, and we'll try to wrap up socio-cultural. Socio-cultural essentially means study of society, culture, and socio-cultural institutions and so on. Okay, so if you see this, in the first session we basically are looking at culture, society, okay, marriage-related institutions and things like that. And eventually we'll go to family, kinship, economic organization, then political organization, religious organization, and we're basically kind of done. Followed by which you will have a test. Okay, and test aapko sirf just, the goal is very simple, just to get 50 pages. Okay, you cannot write that in 3 hours at the moment. Okay, focus on quality more than the timing है तो मतलब great, because I do understand कि मेरे old students are here. In case for you तो of course it is going to be different, right? You're already in IRS because of your anthro, you're already in IPS because of anthro. ठीक है, you can write fast if you still have that speed. ठीक है, it'll be difficult for you as well because it's been a while. ठीक है, but for the rest of you, the only target is, okay, they're going to be easy, moderate, and of course I'm going to throw in a lot of difficult questions, because what's the point, right? Practice to karenge, right? So we want to have a little difficult kind of practice as well, and so on. So 50 pages aapko likhne, good bad doesn't matter. Okay, just the process of just writing is basically what we want. Okay, so we'll basically go through some of the topics today, and some of the topics in the beginning that I'm going to discuss is going to be this. So in case you've been a little out of touch with anthropology, okay, or sociocultural anthropology, you will get a good quick understanding of it. Okay, so let's talk about this, right? So for many of you, I'm assuming that you've been a little out of touch with anthropology, or you've at least been a little out of touch with sociocultural anthropology. Okay, and we are starting with sociocultural anthropology. So I'll just go over some basic concepts of sociocultural anthropology, especially from today ka topics. Okay, so pehla wala is going to be society and culture, right? Think about what you remember about society and culture, like fatafat. Okay, what comes to your mind? See, these words jo hai, they sound very ordinary words. This is not some technical words. This is something that everybody uses on a daily basis, and not just anthropologists, not just academic people. Okay, you understand now? But in anthropology, these are actually technical concepts. In anthropology, these are actually technical. That means they have a specific meaning. What is culture, what is society is very specific. And the idea here is, I want you to slowly start using these technical words in your natural flow, in your natural speech. Okay? Meaning, it's not about simply memorizing definitions. Okay? Somebody will do it. Most people do it. Anybody will be able to do it. But you should be able to learn to look at the world from that anthropological lens. Okay? For example, if you see somebody eating, wheat, roti, okay, or ragi mudde, or ragi sankati, different kinds of food in different parts, different kind of millets, and so on. Normally, you may say, this is food. Correct? As a non-anthropologist, you're looking at it just ki matlab khana hai. It's just about food. But as an anthropologist will ask, why is this food common in this particular region? How is it connected to their environment? How is it connected to their agriculture? How is it connected to their history? How is it connected to their identity? Okay? It's kind of, all interlinked culture of a particular society. Similarly, you see a wedding, okay? You are probably of that particular age, jahan pe, you have your friends getting married, or your elder sisters, brothers, cousins, okay? Your elders, your college seniors getting married. Okay? You attend a wedding, you may simply see a celebration. But now you're an anthropologist, okay? You are seeing, when you go to that particular wedding, once you develop that lens, you're looking at the world through anthropology, okay? You are looking at a wedding, now you cannot look at a wedding without that anthropological lens. There's no going back now that you know your anthropology. You are seeing kinship. You are seeing marriage rules. You are seeing rituals. You are seeing a lot of symbols. You are seeing status. You are seeing, in a way, culture. That, my dear friends, is your anthropological lens. Okay? After this, you cannot go attend a wedding and not look at these kind of things. Okay? But before this, what do you think? Acha, what time is the muhurtam? Okay, uske baad, when exactly is the food? Okay, who all are here? Okay, but now the way you look and analyze the world around you is going to be very different. Okay? So let's begin with this culture. So, society and culture. Let me start with what is culture. Okay, what exactly is culture? What exactly is culture? What exactly is culture? Tell me in your own way. So DH basically is helping, okay? So is saying go to update section. There's a bell icon there, and you can see the introductory message, and it is mentioned there, followed by an exclamation. Okay? So that's where you find it. Okay? All right. What exactly is culture? I'll give you 30 seconds. 15 seconds anyways is going to be about us. There is a little bit of a lag, no? Okay? Tell me what exactly do you understand by culture, and please don't tell me E.B. Tyler. ठीक है, वो तो पता है, ठीक है, but what exactly is culture in your simple words? Okay, so RRN has given me the first answer. First of all, kudos for being the first. ठीक है, you have very fast fingers. Good. The way of living is culture. Good, good. Okay. Anything else? So culture is a way of life. Oh, very similar. ठीक है, so मतलब you have very similar thinking. ठीक है, that is your AV. Good, wonderful. So food, clothing. Okay, that is okay. Great. There's another one. Okay, PSK. This is ठीक है, way of life, how we are living. ठीक है, so good. So looks like you guys are all in sync. Great. Okay, good. All these things are definitely culture. Okay, but if I ask you this question, if I make it a little more sort of, थोड़ा सा funnel करते हैं, ठीक है, I'm asking you in a very specific manner, can you please tell me your culture? Somebody asks you who's not from India, ठीक है, somebody who's not knowing your culture, ठीक है, they don't know where you live, or now they've just met you for the very first time, they're asking you for, what is your culture like? Then what do you say? Somebody from, a part of the world that you don't generally see. Slovenia says somebody is basically coming and asking you. How would you describe? ठीक है, एक sentence में आपको बताना पड़ेगा. How would you describe your culture? Think about it. EB Thailand and all this later. ठीक है, that's fine. But how would you describe what is culture? How do you understand the meaning of it? Culture is what people in a society follow. RK, good. ठीक है, good. Culture is a way of life, or we say beliefs, ideas, and customs. ठीक है, great. This is AG, excellent. Customs, traditions, rituals, life experiences as SC. Great, okay, good. Culture is experience of people that they get, which was created by themselves. Okay, this is MB, wonderful. ठीक है. All very, very nice ways of putting it. DM says, in layman terms, culture is a way we accommodate to our surroundings. Okay, how we adjust to our surroundings. Okay, how we adapt to our surroundings. Okay, that's also very good. Take care, wonderful. It is learned, it's shared, it's symbolic, set of behavior, belief, values, and material objects that people, as members of society. Good. This is HK. You will explain it through tradition and food and festivals. That is good. This is PSK. Great. Okay. And so on. The way we carry out festivities and food and clothes, this is RRN. Okay, this is how you would basically explain it. So these are very good. Okay, my life is shaped by diversity of lived customs. Good. Okay, diverse yet unitary in nature. That's entire India. Okay, good. So you're all right in a way. Okay, so the meaning of the word culture again comes from in academia. Basically, how it comes is one of the most important names that you should remember, which is your E.B. Tyler. That is where it essentially comes from. Even today, what was kind of discussed in 1871 is still relevant in today's time period. Tyler jo hai, E.B. Tyler, he's criticized for a whole variety of things and so on, but he's considered to be one of the fathers of modern anthropology. ठीक है, modern anthropology में, he had started this whole thing. In his very famous book, which is called as A Primitive Culture 1871. ठीक है, there is, just put down some keywords here. ठीक है, very famous book. And E.B. Tyler, लिख लेते हैं some keywords. Focus on understanding, ठीक है, not just about memorizing and things like that. यहाँ पे, ठीक है, he gave a classical definition of culture. ठीक है, according to Tyler, what is culture? Culture is that complex whole which includes KBA MLC, knowledge, belief, art, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as members of society, or acquired by humans as members of society. So the most important words here are complex whole, which includes a whole lot of things, right? So it is knowledge, belief, arts, morals, laws, customs, and etc. bhi hai, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man. Okay? And this also has another important word, which is acquired. Okay? Culture is something that we are not born with. We have acquired. Okay? Why? Because culture is not only about dance, it is not only about dress, it is not only about food, it is not only about festivals. Okay? Culture also includes our ideas. Culture includes your value systems. Culture includes your belief systems. Culture includes your morality. Culture includes your customs. Culture includes your behavior. Every one of these things, Kelly, you can think of examples. For example, morality is not the same in all cultures. Okay? What did we learn? America did, something very wrong in at the end of World War II. Hai ki nahi? Hiroshima, Nagasaki. But if you go to the US and ask the Americans even today are so convinced that they did a good thing. Of course, they had to do a small bad thing in order to, prevent a very, very bad thing. Okay? And they kind of saved the world is the kind of thought that, people have. You understand, no? Another example, touching the feet of elders is culture. Now, touching the feet of elders is not the same everywhere. Okay? You do it in another culture, another society, another country, they'll be like, what is this? What did you drop? You understand, no? It's very different. In fact, North also and South also, it is very different. Okay? North India, it's a gesture. Okay? And they don't touch all the way to the feet. It is like the knee. Okay? South India, we don't do it that often. But jab karte hain, so literally you have to go all flat out. And the duration is also a lot more. You understand, no? Okay? Eating with your hands can be culture. Ideas regarding marriage is also culture. Even what we consider respectful or what is disrespectful is culturally influenced. Okay? Indians like to bargain. We negotiate before any kind of a deal. Okay? This in some other places might be seen as something that is highly disrespectful. It could be vice versa also. There are certain kind of things that, foreigners might come to India and then do, and that we find it kind of to be disrespectful. Okay? It is very culture specific. So culture is basically a complex whole. Okay? There's another definition that basically comes from Herskowitz. Okay? Culture is man-made part of environment. Okay? Herskowitz. What are the keywords here? Man-made, man का मतलब है human, ठीक है? Man, woman does not matter. ठीक है? It is a man-made part of the environment. ठीक है? Again, so this is a beautifully technical expression. ठीक है? Learn to use it. A forest जो है is a natural environment. But if in that particular forest you have a sacred grove, now we don't want this. ठीक है? This is your forest. Beautifully circular. ठीक है? उसके अंदर let's say that you have a small sacred complex. This is your natural environment. है कि नहीं? And this sacred complex, this is a sacred grove. ठीक है? Sacred grove. Okay, so this is, what is this? Okay, what is this? Right? If that is a natural environment, okay, the sacred grove is where a community attaches religious meaning to certain trees and plants and whatever else you find in the sacred grove. So this contains a cultural dimension. Why? Because it is a man-made part of environment to which we have assigned religious meaning, religious importance, spiritual importance. You understand, no? Okay? A stone is natural. Understand? Okay? But the second, when human beings basically turn it into a religious symbol, okay, whether it is in Mecca, whether it is in your Jerusalem, whether it's in church, whether it is in a temple, whether it's a Gurudwara, whether it's whatever, you get the picture, right? It does not matter. But if it is humans who turn it into a religious symbol, okay, they can turn that same stone into a religious symbol, they can turn it into a tool that you can use for something else, you can turn it into a monument. The meaning has been added by that particular culture. Ralph Linton emphasized that culture jo hai, it basically consists of knowledge, attitudes, and habitual behavior which are shared and transmitted. Okay, another kind of a definition. It is shared and transmitted. Okay, Ralph Linton. Okay, what do we have here? Ralph Linton, he is emphasizing culture basically includes what? Okay, it is knowledge. Okay, I'll write. Attitudes, behaviors, okay, knowledge, attitude, behaviors which are shared and transmitted. Which are shared and transmitted. has to be shared by the members of a society. It has to be transmitted generation to generation. You understand, na? Similarly, you have Malinowski, the ever so famous Malinowski, and you guys will all know Malinowski. Who's Malinowski? You guys should know. Okay, he calls culture as the handiwork of man. Culture is equal to handiwork of man. You should like him, okay? Because in order to write E.B. Tyler, the most famous definition, it's going to take you a whole half a page, okay? And he has given you in one line for sure, regardless of what is your handwriting, you will be able to give that meaning. Culture is the handiwork of man. Okay? And not only that, he says it is the medium through which human beings achieve their ends. Okay? It is the medium through which it is a medium. The key word here is medium. Take a medium through which humans achieve their ends. Okay? So in very simple words, or if I can just explain this in very simple way, okay? The shirt that I'm wearing is basically culture. I can look at it from, anybody ka perspective, right? For example, the previous one said it is a man-made part of environment. Okay? This is not, environment mein aisa nahi tha. The nature did not basically create this. It was actually made by people themselves, not me. Okay? Let's say the tailor. Okay? It is man-made part of environment. And it is the medium through which humans achieve their ends. And what is this human here what kind of end is he trying to achieve? What kind of goal is he trying to achieve? Okay? He wants to cover his body. Or maybe it is cold. Maybe, stay away from winds and dirt and whatever other kind of things. So it's basically something that the man is using. It's the medium through which he's achieving some kind of end. Okay? You get the picture, right? So when you have these kind of things, it is not about just, showing ki, I have memorized all of these kind of things. It is about showing what it means to your evaluator. The second you start, speaking like this to the evaluator, through your words, okay, the evaluator only wants to help you. This kid knows. This kid understands. Okay? So net, what you have studied till now is that in very simple words, can we say culture is learned human behavior and meanings? Culture is learned human behavior and meanings. It is learnt. We are not born with it. We learn it. Okay? Understood? Got it? Okay. Culture is traditions followed by a society, ethnic group, nation. Great. AG, wonderful. Okay. People acquire as a member of society. Right. So you've given the definition HK. Good. Culture is shared values, learned experience, day-to-day conduct of people in society. Okay, good. You're using culture in society the right way. Okay, great. Now if I ask you, what exactly is characteristics, features, of culture? In a not so academic way, if you can think, if somebody asks you what are the characteristics of culture, will you be able to answer? Okay? You probably know now. Okay? Culture is social. Culture though is social. Hai ki nahi? That is the first one. Okay, what is second? Okay, culture is social is one. Second one, culture is learnt. Culture is learnt. Second one. Culture is dynamic. What does that mean? Generally, ये सब हर एक साल पूछते हैं, ठीक है? मतलब there will be a question जहाँ पे all of these things are relevant. So fourth one. Okay, fourth one is going to be culture is transmitted. Culture is transmitted and culture is symbolic. You get the picture, right? Okay, so these are the kind of characteristics. Now, what does each of these things mean? Again, कि मतलब इसका क्या लिखना है, क्या रटना है, क्या, I want you to really get a feel for it. Okay, this is how you study socio-cultural anthropology. So if I say culture is social, what does that necessarily mean? Characteristics of culture. Culture is social. So that means culture does not develop in isolation. It develops through social interaction. मान लो कि there is a child and the child is basically growing up completely outside of human society, right? Like Jungle Book, we have seen that, right? So, Mowgli basically stays outside. ठीक है? That child will not automatically know a language. ठीक है? Maybe the language of, the forest or, wherever he's from, but not the language of humans. ठीक है? He will not have religious practices. He will not have table manners. He will not have marriage customs. He will not have these kind of things. Or he or she. ठीक है? It can be any of these things. These come from being a member of society. ठीक है? Which society are you from? वहां से आप gather करते हो. So culture is basically something that you are socially acquiring. Culture is something that you socially acquire. ठीक है? Why does somebody, for example, why does a Kannada speaking child generally learn Kannada? Why does a Hindi speaking child generally learn Hindi? Not because Kannada or Hindi is based or is present in their genes. Do you think it's coded for in your genes? Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, ठीक है? Nagamese, Odia, Bengali. Do you think it's that way? No, it is because the child interacts with, Kannada speaking social environment or Hindi speaking social environment, Tamil speaking social environment, Punjabi speaking social environment and so on. ठीक है? And the same argument basically goes whether it is food habits. ठीक है? For example, what is your favorite food? ठीक है? For some it might be, let's say, aloo ka paratha. And when somebody it might be, idli. Okay, idli and sambar. ठीक है? Now of course, now you feel, right? So when you're very hungry, you feel कि अरे यार एक आलू का पराठा चाहिए. या मतलब आपके लिए मतलब you want to have idli and sambar, right? Now do you think it is basically coded for in your tongue? Okay, when you were born, the genes are basically sort of like in that kind of manner. No. It is because, you were raised in a home that had aloo paratha for breakfast or they had, idli and sambar for breakfast. You understand now? So in case you're salivating, it is also because, it is basically going back to you being a member of your society and what you have eaten and, and so on. It has a lot of good memories associated with it and things like that. Take how you greet people. What is your dressing pattern? Take what kind of rituals? All those things are basically shaped through your social life, whom you're interacting with, whom you're living with and so on. ठीक है? So that's why Clyde Lacon जो है, he basically called culture as a design for living. A very useful phrase, design for living. Culture basically gives you a framework for living. What to eat, how to greet, how to marry, how to mourn when there is somebody who died, how to celebrate a particular, event. So it basically helps humans adjust to their social and, even the natural environment. Second is going to be, culture is basically learned. What does culture is learned ka matlab? This is also extremely important. Okay, culture is not biologically inherited. You understand, right? There are so many things out here. What you see here is basically biologically inherited. Whether it is my hair, whether it is my skin, whether it is my features, whether my height, whether it is my, all these kind of things, my eye color, skin tone, all those kind of things. Okay, those are all, not learned. Those are biologically inherited. But culture is not biologically inherited. It is something that is learned. You're not born knowing how to celebrate Deepavali. You're not born knowing how to celebrate Christmas. You're not born knowing how to celebrate Eid. Or feeling that feeling, that we want to celebrate it. These are all learned things. You're not born knowing that certain clothes are considered to be formal and certain clothes are considered to be casual. Society teaches you. So if I am in front of you guys, I have to be wearing a shirt. Because that is considered to be formal. Who taught me this? Society teaches me this. Indian formals, or Indian kind of attire, like what my grandfather must have been wearing, let's say pre-independence, might not be what we consider to be formal today in Indian office settings. Women ke liye, for some reason, it is fine. What my grandmother was wearing, you can still wear it. Even if you're a diplomat at the highest level, you tend to wear a sari and do it. But, not for the men. Men ke liye to we have changed. All Western ho gaya. Learned. We learn what is appropriate. Now learn an important technical word. Enculturation. Have you guys heard of this word? Enculturation. There are questions on this thing every year. Okay, not specifically on this particular word, but these are the kind of terms that you have to use when you're starting to speak, in social cultural anthropology. Academically you want to speak, these are the kind of terms that you want to use. Enculturation ka matlab hai, you're learning your own culture from your childhood. A child essentially learns their family ka language. I think they start speaking when they're 8 months old, 10 months old, 1 year old, one year and a quarter years old. You get the picture, right? They learn the food habits of their home. They learn the customs of their home. They learn what is the social etiquette, of the home. And slowly they start getting exposed to outside kind of thing. This process is basically called as enculturation. ठीक है, I want you to make these kind of words part of your actual language. There's another word called as acculturation. Acculturation का मतलब क्या है? What is acculturation? Acculturation is, suppose a person comes into comes into contact with, let's say, another culture and adopts some of its cultural traits. This is called as acculturation. Okay, not your culture, but another culture. Enculturation, your culture. Acculturation, other culture. Understood, no? So, for example, I think many of you would be Gen Z. Okay, or what you guys generally say is, sir, I'm in the border of Gen Z and the millennial, or at least I identify more with millennials and less with Gen Z, or somewhere in that transition wala this thing. But generally I've noticed that your generation basically is also kind of had a lot more sort of exposure to this Korean pop and Korean culture and Korean music and all these kind of things in comparison to my generation. Okay, so what do you learn? Okay, so what you have learned is Korean skincare, acculturation. You have learned Korean, clothing, right? Korean styles. Okay, and you would have seen, there are a lot of kids who basically wear, the Korean kind of clothing, loose kind of attire and things like this. These are all basically acculturation. If they can also speak Korean, some of you can also speak a little bit of Korean. That is acculturation. You understand, no? But more so in our world, how we look at it is, let's say that there is a tribal community that is adopting elements of neighboring cultures. Mainstream kind of dress, not the tribal dress. Okay, more formal education. Okay, more kind of technology, more all those kind of things, because they have a lot more contact with them. Okay, this is basically acculturation. You understand, no? So you have to understand these kind of terms and be able to use them in your natural flow. Enculturation, acculturation. Your culture, another culture. Is that clear? Culture, we said, is dynamic. Dynamic का मतलब क्या है? Culture is not frozen. Culture changes. So if I go back, okay, if I go back to my father's generation, okay, my father is basically transition. Okay, but if I go back to my grandparents, okay, they were born in the 1920s. Okay, and my grandmother basically passed in not 19s. She actually passed away in 2003. Okay, that generation to this particular generation, what you notice is that there is definitely a lot of changes. So how I am might be very different from how my grandfather must have been. Okay? Think about Indian marriages 50 years ago and Indian, marriages or weddings in today's time period. Institution basically continues. Marriage as an institution basically continues, but many aspects have actually changed. Okay? How they would have actually found their own kind of, brides or grooms must have been very different. Aajkal kya ho raha hai? Okay? World has moved so far ahead. Today it is online matrimonial kind of platforms are there. Okay? Today it is not that uncommon to have inter-regional kind of marriages and things like that. Okay? And you have, I don't think in my grandparents' generation there must have been anything called as destination weddings. Okay? And of course there is no digital invitations. ठीक है, एंड जेंडर रोल्स. ठीक है, जेंडर रोल्स अभी अगर आप देखोगे मतलब इट इज इक्वल काइंड ऑफ थिंग, राइट? बैक इन द डे इट इज डेफिनेटली नॉट इक्वल. ठीक है, वुमेन्स जॉब इज अ वुमेन्स जॉब, अ मैन्स जॉब इज अ मैन्स जॉब. अ वुमन इफ शी डज नॉट परफॉर्म दैट पर्टिकुलर जॉब, नॉट अ गुड वुमन. ठीक है, मैन डज नॉट परफॉर्म हिज काइंड ऑफ जॉब, नॉट अ गुड मैन. थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड टू अ ग्रेट एक्सटेंट. सो बेसिकली व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज कल्चर इज डायनामिक, इट डज नॉट रिमेन द सेम. ठीक है, कल्चर हैज चेंज्ड. You get the picture, right? Similarly, tribal communities, right? So they, वहाँ पे also there is a lot of changes. Markets आ चुका है, education आ चुका है, state policies, migration, technology, displacement, neighboring populations, all of these kind of things. So culture is not something that is all, ऐसा नहीं होता है कि it remains unchanged for many years. ठीक है? It is constantly kind of changing. Culture is dynamic or culture is adaptive. Culture is transmitted. What does that mean? Culture basically passes from one generation to another generation. ठीक है? Parents teach their children. Elders teach youth. School mein seniors teach you, how to sort of, what are the rules of your college and, university and things like that. Your seniors basically teach you. Same thing, in your school, college, whatever it is. Right? Teachers, friends, religious institutions, communities, they also basically transmit culture. Language itself is one of the greatest vehicles of this kind of cultural transmission. A grandmother teaching a traditional recipe to her granddaughter. That is not just teaching cooking. ठीक है, it is transmitting knowledge about maybe the local crops, the kind of taste, the ritual occasion जब ये बनाना है, या family का tradition. So this is basically cultural transmission. Right? So Ralph Litton therefore described culture as the way of life of members of a society. Okay, it is a way of life of members of society, or that is what most of you basically said it. You get it, right? And lastly, culture is also symbolic. What does that mean? Human culture depends heavily on symbols. There's a whole school, symbolic anthropology, that we will study. Okay, but what exactly is a symbol? Something that carries a shared cultural meaning. Okay, so you see a physical object, but that physical object is not much about that physical object or a particular design or a particular shape or a particular something, but it has meaning beyond this physical object. There is a cloth of a particular proportion. It has 3 colors. Okay, and the center mein, it basically has a wheel. It's just a cloth. Okay, but the cloth is a lot more than what the cloth is. Okay, it is the Indian national flag. Okay, physically it is a cloth, but culturally it represents the nation. It represents unity between you, me, and everybody else in this particular class. Okay, it is about our identity. It gives you a meaning, right? It gives you an identity. It gives you a history. It gives you a sense of belonging. Okay, can you tell me another symbol? What could be a symbol? Symbols play a very important role in culture. For example, cross. What is a cross? The Holy Cross. It has a particular meaning within Christianity. Okay, wedding ring. Agar hai, if somebody is basically having a wedding ring, okay, physically, there could be a whole lot of rings. Some people have a lot of rings. Okay, but that one particular ring, physically it might be a piece of metal or a very expensive stone, whatever. Okay, but culturally it symbolizes a person is married and a person is committed to another person. So as anthropologists, you don't just ask, what is this particular object? But you're asking, what does this object mean to the people who follow this particular culture? That shift is that anthropological lens that you develop. Okay? And now I think you are already developing it. Is this kind of clear? So comfortable, right? So this is not just ki 5 point padna hai, likhna hai, okay? You're really understanding and you're able to sort of communicate, with the academic, ideas of anthropology. Is this clear? So this is RK. Sir, is culture not enforced? For example, sari attire, which example you gave, isn't it mandatory or suitable in diplomatic meetings rather than learned? Yeah, but how do you know that it is the right attire? Or it is a wrong attire? Or it's not appropriate, it is appropriate? You know it because you learned it. Okay, what exactly is your rule? So culture can be enforced for sure. So for example, I went to a boarding school. Oh, boarding school mein there are certain kind of rules and regulations that are there. How do I know what it is? Pehla month mein I was kind of confused. Okay, what is this? Who is this? Okay, kab kya pehenna hai? Monday ko kya pehenna hai? Us din ko kya pehenna hai? Okay, how do you sort of behave? Right? How do you behave with seniors? How do you behave with the juniors? How do you sort of, you get the picture, right? All of those things are basically something that, it is. So some portions are kind of like within your friends kind of circle, okay, that is, you learn it. And then some are going to be enforced, which also is something that you learn. Okay, these are the rules of this particular school, of this university, of this kind of meeting, or this kind of organization, and so on. So that is also kind of learned. Okay, is that kind of clear? Okay. Understood, right? So, agar culture ho gaya, sorry, then we have society as well, right? So we'll take a look at society. So what we'll do is we'll try to just cover some topics all the way till, let's say, 7 o'clock. And from 7 o'clock, I'll basically show you some questions and I'll make you structure some answers. बाद में जाके आप लिख सकते हो and I'll discuss it as, we have multiple classes, so not an issue. ठीक है? Symbols, RRN says, religious symbols, moon and stars, excellent. ठीक है? And then you have Mangal Sutra for Hindu women. ठीक है? Great, excellent examples. ठीक है? So, exactly. See, that's exactly what I want, right? So, you're able to sort of connect what you see around you in this world and be able to connect it to the academia. ठीक है? And look at the world from these kind of terms. These words have to become part of your natural vocabulary. ठीक है? Next is going to be society. So, culture and society is basically what we said. So, what exactly is society? अभी ये बताओ कि society का मतलब क्या है? What exactly is society? What is society, guys? So do we have to make any short? No. You don't have to. But learn to speak exactly like I'm speaking to you. You understand now? So this is the speak of anthropology. You understand? Okay, this is the language of anthropology. And you have to start getting more comfortable, in the language of anthropology. These are the kind of words that we use, and this is the way in which we use. ठीक है, you should start feeling like, I feel comfortable in this thing. मतलब, sometimes आपको लगेगा कि आप कुछ पढ़ रहे हो, but you're forcing it down your paper. It's just not a natural kind of flow. But as an anthropologist, you're developing that ability to look at the world through anthropology. Okay? And you're looking at it through, these kind of words, these kind of concepts. Okay? These are all technical concepts. Okay? You understand, na? So you have to learn the ability to speak like this. Naturally, wo flow hoga. Got it, na? An organization of people, aspirants. Excellent. Okay, okay. Individuals coming together for solving their common needs in form of institutions. Individuals coming together for solving their common needs in the form of institutions. Okay, okay. Good. Caps mat likho. Matlab, caps is basically something when you're very angry at somebody, you send caps. Okay, that's how it is. Again, how do we know this thing? It is learned. Okay, there are certain rules. Just try to keep it not in caps, all the letters. Okay, it's the equivalent of screaming at somebody. Okay, so unless you really wanted to scream at me, okay, so take off that caps lock. RK, society basically consists of a group of individuals bound by their cultural beliefs. Okay, good. Organized group of individuals having a shared way of life. SC, great, excellent. Okay, excellent. Society is a group of people having a way of life. Excellent. Okay, excellent. Okay, good. I guess I should skip society because you seem to know it. Okay, McIver and Page. Okay, McIver and Page. McIver and Page. Okay, society is basically what? Okay. ठीक है, okay. TWOSR, two sir. ठीक है, the web of social relationships. Find a way to remember it. This is an excellent phrase for answers. Why is it basically called a web? ठीक है, web क्या है? Because society is not simply a collection of individuals. People are all connected through all kinds of relationships. Parent and child. ठीक है, husband and wife, teacher and student. ठीक है, employer, employee. Political relationship, economic relationships, kinship relationships. Together, we are all connected in a very complex web. Okay? Herskowitz defined society as an organized, interacting aggregate of individuals following a given way of life. In fact, this is the definition that most of you basically talked about. So Herskowitz defined society as what? Now tell me, did we see Herskowitz previously? Okay, we saw. Okay, so society is basically what? And look at these words: organized. Organized. Get it right? It is an organized, interacting aggregate of individuals. What is it? It is an organized, interacting aggregate of individuals, and the most important thing, following a given way of life. Following a given way of life. In fact, some of you have actually highlighted this in the way you explained it in your own kind of words. Okay, so you're equivalent to Herskowitz. Okay, in the way you explain it. Of course, he gave it first. So, he's a little higher. Ralph Linton basically makes the distinction even simpler. Okay? In fact, Ralph Linton क्या कह रहे हैं? Ralph Linton, did we see Ralph Linton till now? Right? We saw Ralph Linton. Society is an organized group of individuals. So, RL says society is an organized, same organized. We saw this in the previous one also, right? Organized is basically there. It is organized what? It's an organized group of individuals. Nice, no? Okay, and what is culture? Culture is organized group of learned responses. Culture is equal to, it's also organized. Organized. Okay, see how many organized are there? Take organized. Okay, it's an organized group of learned responses. How we respond, and we learn how to respond. So in a simple way, if I can, because we've gone through so many of these things, society is basically what? It is people and their relationships. And culture is the learnt way of life of those people. Understood, na? ठीक है? So, society का मतलब है the people, and culture essentially is their way of life. उस people का a shared way of life, and they learn it. It's not something that is handed down genetically or inherited or something, right? We learn this. And society can be different types. ठीक है? We can have societies that are, based on, you can classify them based on different kind of things. ठीक है? So for example, there are some societies today, if you see, they live economically, अगर आपको economically and technologically, if you want to sort of classify, ठीक है, what do you see? You have hunting and gathering kind of societies. ठीक है? Generally many tribes वगैरह होते हैं. ओंगे, जारावा, चेंचूस वो करते थे, यानदी वो करते थे, and forest based kind of livelihood उनका था. ठीक है? उनका life is basically subsistence. Let's try to find what we need in order to be able to survive. Then you have your pastoralist kind of societies. Economic way of life is different from the hunting and gathering groups because they are domesticating their animals. And those animals are going to be useful for them in many ways, right? So they might give milk, or they might give meat, or they might give wool, they might give transport capability, economic security and things like this. Todas are a great example of buffalo pastoralism. You have Gujars of your Kashmir, okay, who are these communities who have these kind of pastoralist kind of livelihoods. Bakarwals in this one, in Kashmir, they are a great example. Shembaga, TSEMBAGA, Papua New Guinea में है, ठीक है, pig, animal husbandry or pig husbandry they essentially have. So again, animals are not only economic resources, they become part of their culture, they become part of their rituals, they become part of their identity, they become part of their social relationships and so on. That is how anthropologists think. ठीक है? You cannot separate economy and religion and society, all these things in a very mechanical formula, like a formula kind of sense. ठीक है? ये है आपका एनिमल हस्बेंड्री काइंड ऑफ सोसाइटीज, पैस्टोरलिज्म. देन यू कैन हैव एग्रीकल्चरल काइंड ऑफ सोसाइटीज. इसके अलावा यू हैव इंडस्ट्रियल सोसाइटीज, राइट? ऑल ऑफ दीज आर डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ सोसाइटीज दैट आर देयर. You get the picture, right? So you can have different kind of societies that are classified in many different kind of manner. Okay, this is your culture and society. So if I ask you what is the relationship between culture and society, what is it? Very simple. Okay, society and culture are different, but they are inseparable. Herskowitz basically says कि आपका culture जो है is a way of life of the people. ठीक है? Whereas the people is your society. Society, what did we see? It is organized and interacting aggregate of individuals following that way of life, which is their culture. So very simply put, society is basically your people and relationships. Culture is basically a way of life. It is not random people. I always like to give this particular question, right? If I tell you there is a village, and a village में let's say 100 लोग हैं, ठीक है? There is a village, a tiny little hamlet, and there are 100 people there. ठीक है? Similarly, you have a train का एक platform जहाँ पे there are 100 people there. Same number of people in both of these kind of places. Now, can you tell me, are both of them equal to society? Both of them are a group of people of 100 people. ठीक है? Are both of them society? Are both of them society? Why? Why not? DH says, society is all about people and culture is about ideas and norms and beliefs. Very well put, DH. Okay, excellent. Okay, that's exactly hitting the nail on the head. MB, society is a group of people bonded, united by common belief and customs. MB, great, wonderful. Okay, well put. HK, society means group of people living together in an organized way. Okay, great, HK. It's good. Good. Society comprises people, right? RRN. Group of people living in a place, right? Right. Okay, wonderful. Society is people and relationships. That's what I said. So if I'm saying train ka platform, what are the relationships there? Is there anything? Of course, we have to go either this way or that way together for, let's say, the next 1 hour. Beyond that, what do you have? Oh, 1 hour, how many hours it is going to be? A village is people who have relationships. Good relationships, bad relationships, that is a different kind of thing. Economic relationships, political relationships, different kind of thing. Kinship relationships, friendships, does not necessarily matter, but they have relationships. Society means people and their relationships. Okay? A group of people on a platform, okay? That's not a society. That is just people just standing together in order to disperse in different ways and go and join their society. Understood? I hope this is kind of clear. So I hope that, this culture and society is kind of clear for you. You can define what a society is, right? You can basically explain what kind of society that you're trying to explain. I might say that it is a hunting-gathering society. It need not only be based on their economy. For example, can I say patriarchal society? What does patriarchal society mean? So anything, it can be a dash kind of society. You're basically trying to say what this society is like. You can fill this anything, hunting and gathering, pastoralist, ठीक है, patriarchal society. Patriarchy का मतलब क्या है? Is India a patriarchal society? SC says no, because the platform wala thing, because they are not organized and they are not interacting with each other. Right. Very well put. Platform people are not society because they don't have common culture, right? What if they have a common culture, but there is no relationship? Relationship also matters. ठीक है? Train in this case does not consist of interacting aggregate of individuals, whereas the latter has. So well put. Okay. One thing I really like is you have good clarity on these kind of topics. I'm sure that you might not even remember कि who said what. ठीक है, these things might be something that you still have to work on. But वो clarity जो है, you have very good. वो conceptual clarity. And that is what your evaluators are looking for. ठीक है, don't tell me कि कितना आपका rote learning ability है. ठीक है, show me that you understand and you appreciate this academic subject that you have taken in order to get to IAS. IPS, IFS. Some of you want IFS. What do you want? Take a IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, whatever it is, I'll support whichever you want. You get it, right? Okay, you may not remember, these kind of definitions, but one thing that you have is you have clarity on what they actually meant without maybe remembering the exact terms and words and things like that they have studied. Ye abhi pad lo, okay? That's not that difficult. This is an easy part because clarity though you have. Okay? You have very good clarity. But ability, imagine you writing an answers, in your paper and, all these things are naturally flowing. Kind of like me. And it will naturally flow in end of November. On the last day of your last test, okay, regardless of what was the quality so far, these ideas and these words and these scholars are going to naturally flow. So we wait for that. Okay? Very good. Maybe we'll take one more topic and then we'll discuss this. Our case is absolutely yes, India is patriarchal based on the ideas and beliefs we follow, and women do not follow norms bound by the society embedded in cultural practices. Women do follow. Okay. So patriarchal society क्या है? ठीक है? Okay, patriarchal society. RK feels that India is a patriarchal society, which is right. You have to be able to defend whether India is patriarchal, whether India is not patriarchal. A patriarchal society में, see, patriarchy का मतलब है, it refers to those kind of social relationships या structure in that society जहाँ पे it is the men who generally hold greater authority. So archy is about authority. Okay, now that archy could be matriarchy or patriarchy, but it's about where is that authority. Okay, who holds that greater authority. Okay, that kind of a social organization, that influences other parts of culture. Gender roles क्या है, inheritance कैसे होने चाहिए, dress का expectation क्या है, ठीक है, men can wear so and so, women have to wear so and so, और marriage norms, इनका, ये choose करेंगे, इनका choose नहीं करेंगे, you get the picture, right? So मतलब all of these kind of things, ठीक है, so this is good, so you put it. RRN says, no, India is not patriarchal as we have a blend of both, though it is believed male dominance, but India is such a diverse country and that we blend varieties of societies, matriarchy, patriarchy and many other kind of types. Excellent, ठीक है, because India इतना diverse है, how can you say कि मतलब blanket statement, that is also something, ठीक है, majority में हम ये कह सकते हैं, but it need not be. PSK, what is your question? TQ, huh? Thank you, sir, for making us recalling the topics and summarizing them in a better way. Okay, good. You are summarizing it better than me. Okay, so I'm just sort of, making you recall whatever you already know. Okay, see, ethnocentrism and cultural relativism, these are all technical terms here. Okay, you probably know this, right? two very important concepts. Again, this is also something jahan pe every single year aapke paper mein ethnocentrism as a word will be there, cultural relativism as a word will be there. ठीक है? It cannot be that you don't have it. Every single FLT आप जब लिखोगे, these are all the words that you're going to use. And these are technical words. But the ideas are actually very simple. In your own way, just put it through. ठीक है? And I will, get to it once I'm, when I get a chance to look at it. ठीक है? So what is ethnocentrism? See, these kind of concepts basically teach how an anthropologist should look at other cultures. How do you basically look at another culture? Because that is your job as an anthropologist. You're not simply memorizing the definitions, right? You're learning to use these words in your natural flow. ठीक है? In your natural vocabulary. Slowly, you're developing that anthropological lens. Whenever you see a cultural practices, don't immediately ask, is this normal? Instead ask, what does this practice or why does this particular practice exist in this particular culture? That shift, why does it exist? What is the reason behind it? Rather than कि why? ठीक है कि मतलब ये क्यों है? ठीक है, why should it not be like ours? Ours seem a lot more normal, right? Instead, what are we asking? We are asking why does it exist in this kind of a culture? Okay, what is the purpose behind it? What is the function behind it? What is the role that it plays? It's a very important sort of shift in mindset. Okay, ethnocentrism kya hai? First of all, if I ask you what exactly is ethnocentrism in your own kind of words, okay, try to see if you're able to sort of like pen it down in your own way, or use your fingers to sort of type it down in your own kind of way. Ethnocentrism, can I say it means judging another culture using the standards of our own culture? I'll repeat this again. Can I say, will I be right if I say this? Okay, it is about judging another culture using the standards of our own culture, your own culture. So very simply, my culture becomes the standard for judging your culture. I'm looking at your culture from my standards of what is a normal kind of culture. Anything that is not like my culture, I feel is an abnormal culture. For example, suppose I believe my food habits are normal. Then I see another community eating something I don't eat normally. And if I say, immediately I look at their eating habits and say, and I make all kinds of faces. And I say, that's just disgusting. Okay, what is that? That is an ethnocentric reaction. A normal person having this is kind of different, but as an anthropologist, as a person who is supposed to understand other cultures, and if you have this or if I have this, okay, I can never ever sort of understand another culture. I have not understood their food ka culture. Instead, it is not about understanding. I have actually judged them. I have judged them, and that too through my culture. Early evolutionists, agar aap dekhoge, and this is something that you will study in theories as well, early evolutionists, early anthropologists, including your E.B. Tylor, including your, L.H. Morgans and your Frasers and so on, right? They were the early classical evolutionists. They always used to place the Western society as the highest stage of evolution, the most advanced, the most normal, the most kind of, like polished. Everybody else, we are going to see as white people, as Europeans, ki kitna savage hai, kitna barbaric hai, kitna backward hai, kitna primitive hai. Why? Because they look at it from Western society's perspective. Because Western society became their standard of progress. If you are like us, you're progressed. If you're not, you are not progressed, you're primitive. You understand? E.B. Tylor did that. E.B. Tylor, in discussing evolution of religion, he placed certain religions of their Victorian kind of religions, monotheism, at the highest stage, and every other religion he's deciding ki matlab itna primitive hai, kitna primitive hai, how far primitive is it? Because you have this kind of a mindset. Such evolutionary scheme of things were basically influenced by their cultural assumptions of their time ki hamara culture is the most advanced kind of culture. Everybody else is almost close to being animals. This is why anthropology later became much more conscious about these kind of things. And they agree, anthropology today believes that, hamare beginning mein, in our academia, in the beginning we had ethnocentric bias. But what is most important scientifically is if we make a mistake, accept it. And we accept that, and then we have changed the methods. Okay? There could be many other examples. For example, in some kind of places, they might not eat this particular food or that particular food. Another person, Kelly, it might look like, why would that be? But we are looking at it in terms of why does that happen. Is that clear? Okay? What is the reason for them to eat it or not to eat it? We have to understand that particular culture, not judge their culture based on our culture. So what exactly is cultural relativism? Agar ye ethnocentrism hai, what exactly is cultural relativism? Can I say this is the opposite? It's the opposite approach. If this is one approach, this is the opposite approach. ये है आपका ऑपोजिट अप्रोच, है कि नहीं? ठीक है, दिस इज ऑल्सो ए टेक्निकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल कॉन्सेप्ट। कल्चरल रिलेटिविज्म का मतलब ये है कि इट इज अंडरस्टैंडिंग अ कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस विद इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कल्चर। ठीक है, यू आर नॉट जजिंग देम थ्रू आर स्टैंडर्ड्स और आर कल्चरल स्टैंडर्ड्स। ठीक है, दिस बिकेम very important, especially through the works of scholars like Franz Boas. He emphasized, okay, all of you guys who came before me, look at the way you're studying cultures. You're judging other cultures and saying they're primitive, they're brutish, they're crude. Okay, this is not how you study cultures. So he said, you understand the context, before making any kind of judgments. Okay, you have many examples, right? Food habits can be very different. For example, the Irulas, and other sort of communities, whether it is Muzahirs in Bihar or, let's say there are some communities in Nepal, many, many parts of the world you have this, right? Jahan pe, traditionally they might be consuming, rats and other kind of food. Okay? And then when people hear about this, right? So there is an ethnocentric kind of a response, either on the face, okay? Even if you don't say anything, or if you say anything, your words are going to be, how can anybody eat that and make that kind of a face? Okay? That cannot make a good anthropologist, because an anthropologist should not make that face. Okay? But anthropologist is asking this question, what is the context? What is the ecological context? What is the reason behind this? Okay? Because food resource, is always based on what is available. Okay? And why would that particular choice be made? Is it their livelihood? Is it the nutritional kind of importance? Is it because they don't have other kind of access to food? Or is it like, we are thinking that wo hum nahi kha rahe hain, but maybe they are judging ki how can these people eat these kind of foods and not eat rats? Okay? You have to understand another culture based on their own kind of ecological, cultural settings. Okay? Rather than look at it from, ours. Who made this rule that this meat is bad, this meat is good? Kahan se aata hai? Ability to question that is your cultural relativism. Understood, no? This is your cultural relativism, right? Early scholars, later scholars. Okay? Of course, there has to be it cannot be unlimited. There has to be some limits to cultural relativism. It cannot be absolute. Cannot be unlimited. Why would it have to be, kind of limited? See, can we accept everything as an anthropologist just because it is cultural? Okay, for example, let's say Taliban. Okay, they believe that, unka culture mein what they have is that, this is how it is in our culture. Okay, women cannot be outside. Women cannot be, they have to be all covered up. Women have to be this. And if women do this thing, stoning and all that kind of stuff. Or let's say the Europeans, when they had that slavery. This is our culture. Okay, we are kind of advanced. And, it's okay to torture people. And it's okay to have all these kind of genocides that we have done because we are, okay? It cannot be. If there is a serious violation of human rights, okay, then we don't say it is just culture. It is their culture. And so we should not judge it. Okay? So this extreme cultural relativism is something that, anthropology maybe don't consider to be. We understand the practice, but that does not necessarily mean that we morally accept every single practice. Okay? Sometimes, if it is, understanding is not the same as endorsing a particular cultural behavior. You understand, no? Okay, we're not endorsing. Elizabeth Zechenter basically provides an important criticism to this cultural relativism. Okay, what she argues is that cultural relativism can sometimes be used by the powerful groups in a particular society and defend practices that benefit only them. See, for example, patriarchy mein RK felt that India is very patriarchal. The men actually feel that ye hamara culture hai, women go inside. Okay, it's not right. It is a powerful groups trying to use or hiding, behind this cultural relativism. Or let us say in certain kind of cultures, jahan pe the women are basically denied basic rights. Okay, and someone basically says, don't interfere, this is hamara culture. Okay, we torture them, we kill them, it does not necessarily matter. Okay, those two girls were basically killed because we had already said that, you should not be going to school. Okay, you get the picture, right? So even culture, whose culture? That cannot be the culture of those, it is the culture of those powerful men. They alone do not represent that particular culture. Even those women, represent that particular culture. Okay, again, so you have to think, so you have to keep all of these kind of things in mind. That's why studying a particular culture is a complex thing. There might be these power relationships within that particular culture, within that particular society. Okay, so basic human rights though, hame rakhna hai. Beyond that, we don't also kind of accept it. Okay, so now we have seen a lot of different kind of topics in social cultural anthropology and so on. Okay, now the way in which we have spoken for the last 1 hour, 1.5 hours, let us say, is actually a slightly different way of speaking in comparison to how you and I would probably speak otherwise. Okay, what was different? What was actually different is that we are using the concepts and theories and frameworks and the kind of terminologies of this particular academic discipline. Okay? This is an ability that you have to develop. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा आपको फोर्स करना पड़ेगा in the beginning in order to be able to speak like this, using all of these. ठीक है, when was the last time you used all of these kind of words in your normal, way of speaking? Did you use all of these things? ठीक है, when was the last time you spoke, right? ठीक है, you probably will not be speaking using all these kind of terms. ठीक है, but slowly you have to develop this ability. Starting में आपको लगेगा कि थोड़ा सा it doesn't feel that natural kind of flow, but by using it again and again, you are developing that natural flow. You're developing that ability to look at things from an anthropological lens. Is that clear? Understood? Ethnocentric view is seeing others' cultures based on our opinion. Based on our opinion, ठीक है, based on our own kind of cultural standards. ठीक है, good, very good. Ethnocentrism is judging other cultures from the lens of one's own culture. This is SC. And CR is objective analysis of cultures with proper context. ठीक है, very well put in your own words. Great. Ethnocentrism, this is DM, okay, so it is ethnocentrism judging other cultures based on our own cultural context and parameters. Good, because cultural relativism might lead to cultural nihilism. So you're basically talking about, okay, this is the next message. Okay, got it. Two different contexts. Great. Okay, cannot abridge human dignity and human rights. Good, good, good. Okay, okay, great, wonderful. So you understood, no? So this is basically the kind of concepts that we have. This is the kind of language that you have to develop some comfort over. Okay, and wo aa jata hai. Okay, so it just takes a little bit of time, but you will get to that particular point. I have some questions. Now, the thing is, I'm not sure if you've basically started opening your material and start reading. If you have, then you will have some idea. If not, then it might take you a little while. Now, what we are going to do for now, understood, sir. Says HK. Ramya says, sir, when are we supposed to memorize? Is it before loss? ऐसा नहीं है. You try to do it parallelly. I've given you a kind of a schedule. As much as possible, try to study those kind of topics, or at least एक reading दे के आ जाओ, so that you feel a little comfortable with it. ठीक है, memorization जो होता है ना, you cannot just memorize it in one go. ठीक है, always remember, for any subject, even for your prelims, whichever kind of subject ना, try to get multiple readings done rather than एक attempt में हम पूरा का memorize कर लेंगे. ठीक है, it doesn't work that way, at least for 99% of us. ठीक है, so what you do is, पहले sections होंगे. ठीक है, so we are going to go through, and your job is basically to get comfortable with all the topics once again. ठीक है, in your own kind of words if you can, that is great. ठीक है, second, you're going to have, last में you're going to have 4 rounds of FLTs. So literally you're going to get इतने rounds of revision that towards the end you're going to have most of these things in your head. ठीक है, as comfortable with all of these things as I am. ठीक है, but immediately नहीं होगा, because then so you keep a timer कि मतलब before every loss I'm going to spend in, let's say 1 hour a day. ठीक है, या 1.5 hours a day, या 2 hours a day. You discuss with me कि कितना time है आपके पास, what all do you, what are the kind of other commitments that you have, and that one, whatever is the time period that we have, that we'll try to keep it consistent. Is that kind of clear? ठीक है, to say कि मतलब I'll memorize it all, sometimes it's not going to be that easy. ठीक है, it happens over time. So by December, by November, if we can do it, that is more than sufficient. Is that clear? RRN? So 3 questions are here. What I'm going to do is, I don't want you to write this now. ठीक है, मतलब it'll take you some time to get used to it. Maybe by the time it is September. ठीक है, but in class what we will do is we'll try to brainstorm कि आप इसको कैसे लिखोगे, what is your main idea. Because writing, then it is just like mechanical job ही है. I'm sure that you will do it. Can I just give you like this, जहाँ पे I'll give you a 5-minute timer for each of these questions. Then I will basically tell you कि मतलब इसको कैसे आप address करोगे. Then you can write it and then you can submit it. And वो submission के लिए deadline मैं बताता हूँ. So every before your test का actual date of that particular test, you finish whatever is the kind of writing. ठीक है, and I'll personally look at it and then evaluate it. ठीक है, if you're able to send it by that time. ठीक है, I can understand. Is that okay? 5 minutes can I give you? Can you just give me, you just have to tell me ki how you would kind of structure these. ठीक है, how would you kind of address? What would be your approach? Social certification is something that we have not covered today. ठीक है, but okay, we can do it. I will explain all of these things in simple manner. ठीक है, so shall I set the timer? just the structure, ठीक है, like what will be your introduction, I will explain social stratification, ऐसे लिख लो, ठीक है, then what will be my headings, conclusion, that's all I want, ठीक है, I want you to start thinking how would I address a particular question using what I already know, that's all, ठीक है, so on your mark, set and go, just the structure, just send me an email. And if you're done with the first question ka just structuring, you go to the next question. All the questions are right in front of you. PSK, sir, comment section is not visible in class. How to connect during class? Like this. Okay, through email. Comment me, there's some issue with this thing. Okay, and I've spoken to Sarrthi team and they told me that, they'll fix it and it'll be up, this quarter itself. That's what the exact words were. But until then, we can interact on through email. Same thing for me. So the first person to finish it is SC. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome back. I'll read some. Okay, one or two I'll always try to take it. So SC says, intro mein, this is for social stratification. I'm going to bring in a definition. Okay, Ogburn and Nimkoff, great, any definitions fine. Characteristics, it is universal but variable, societal factor, not individualistic. Okay, it is transmitted across generations, not just about socioeconomic but also about the beliefs as well. Okay, good. Okay, you're writing about the closed, open, mixed systems. Okay, equal societies, is it possible? Like USSR. Okay, and then you're going to answer that. And then conclusion, stratification doesn't disappear but it manifests in new forms and so on. Okay, very well sort of put in. Okay, oh, there are so many more. Okay, there is HK. And for all of these things I'll go through and then I'll give you a proper, and you have done 2 questions already, great. Definition of social stratification, body, approximately some points regarding the main heading. Okay, you'll add some thinkers' views, criticisms, and conclusion, some contemporary points on social stratification. Okay, that's another way. So this is RV, okay. It's, you have defined it in introduction, reasons behind social stratification, for example, caste system. Okay, and then you have talked about race. There is a changing pattern of social stratification. Okay, government views and challenges. Okay, oh, government views and challenges generally. Okay, good. Because at the end of the day, now you just have to develop your ability to start speaking Anthro. Okay, and then we have AG, definition of social stratification, types of social stratification, defining each with examples, okay, or different kind of examples, a little bit of criticisms, if like untouchability in caste system and so on. And conclusion, every society's stratification has its own kind of basis. We shouldn't judge it completely. So there must be limitations on how humane it is. Okay, great. Let's take a look at how you would answer this particular question. There are many ways to kind of answer this question. All of you guys are right. It depends on how you kind of execute it. Is question ka demand kya tha? First, if you understand the keywords here, social stratification. Okay, that is the main sort of a keyword here. Social stratification means societies arranged in unequal layers. Unequal layers, unequal layers. Okay, causing inequality. Okay, that is the actual. What is it? It is basically the keyword here. Social stratification means society is basically being arranged into unequal layers. So some people basically get more of whatever. Okay, it could be wealth, it could be power, it could be prestige, social respect. Okay, now it has different types. Okay, it's also asking about critically evaluate different types. So that's also an important keyword. Okay, what are the different types? Different types, you can write some types. What could it be? It could be class, it could be caste, it could be, estates, British, and so on, Europeans. Okay, you have slavery, right? These are all. And importantly, they're also asking you to critically evaluate. That means, don't just define each type. For each major type, you're also basically showing ki uska basis kya hai, uska example kya hai, uska limitation kya hai, and things like this. If you do this, they can't cut marks at all. Okay, you have completely address the demand of this particular question. Okay, so how would you start this introduction? Okay, you could basically start with any kind of definition, right? So if you have a definition, for example, and generally one thing for those of you from foundation, I will try not to give much from the foundation yahan pe, because I want you to be kind of unique. So whatever you have, if you have a definition, just stick with it. Okay, laws ke material solutions abhi aapko dikhna nahi hai. We'll discuss that later. Okay, it is more of value addition. Okay, so this question might be for 150, 250, 350, but I'll give you much more. Okay, we'll extract that later. Okay, so don't worry about this. So let's say, social stratification, according to this particular scholar, is going to be what? Social stratification means society is basically divided into layers with unequal social rewards. Okay, basically the question is asking what? How societies organize unequally. Okay, unequally, sorry. And, how do they organize their inequality? So, pehla wala, if I can talk about caste stratification. Many of you have actually brought caste. Okay, so I think that is the first thing that it is basically a closed system. Closed system ka matlab kya hai? First, caste. Okay, caste is a closed system. Jahan pe the mobility jo hai, it is limited. Why? Because your status is largely determined by your birth. Okay, you're born into that particular jati. Okay, you're a Vakaliga, you're a Jat, you're a Lingayat, you are a Kammar, you are a Reddy, you are a whatever. You get the picture, right? Okay, it is already set in stone. Traditionally, marriage was endogamous. Even today, 95% of the marriages that take place happen within that particular group, endogamy. Okay, and in fact, occupations were also often hereditary. And there is a hierarchy. And that hierarchy also had purity, pollution, those kind of notions as well. Okay, India mein we have that Varna, Jati kind of systems, right? So there is a scholar, Indian society mein you will study, Louis Dumont, who basically says in a very nice book, Homo Hierarchicus, what a nice book name, right? He emphasized ki ye hierarchy jo hai, It is actually not based on wealth, it is not based on income, it is not based on XYZ, it is based on ritual, purity and pollution. Some kind of occupations are considered to be pure, some kind of occupations are considered to be not as pure or polluted. Okay? So this is that. Now critically, agar sochoge, caste basically provided you with group ka identity. It gives you a occupational ka continuity. Back in the day, it is difficult to survive if people don't know your caste, or if you're not part of a particular caste. You need like some group to basically take you in. But it also produced exclusion, it produced discrimination, it produced, restricted social mobility. Okay? We miss out on so many gems. Okay? So for example, APJ Abdul Kalam was a great, but he came from a lowly kind of a background. But somehow he rose. But how many APJ Abdul Kalams would basically get lost in the system because it does not allow for a lot of, that social mobility. That is your caste. What about class? So class-based stratification, ye kya hai? It is actually an open system. Class is comparatively an open system, meaning there is more mobility possible in comparison to the first one. Yahan pe the possibilities were less. Class system mein the possibilities, it depends on you. Okay? How much wealth? Your position basically depends on your wealth. So wealth earn karoge, you basically come here. Wealth kam hai, yahan pe aoge. It depends on your occupation. Some occupations are considered to be higher in the eyes of people of that society. It depends on your education level. It depends on the kind of achievements that you have. So for example, dekho, a person from a poor family may acquire education, may get educated, may get medals, may get a good employment, then they enter into middle class. You understand, na? So unlike caste, class ka position is something that what you make of it. Or how much ever you can make of it. The class ka position can change. Now if you see Karl Marx, he basically divided, the European society, the capitalist society, into the bourgeois, or bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie, or owners and proletariat, which are the workers. So he's basically looking at them into two classes. You understand, na? Upper and lower kind of class. But of course, don't romanticize class. Mobility exists. Yet, it is going to be very difficult to be able to sort of, normal people they are not going to be able to sort of catch up with, Elon Musk's children. They're not going to be able to sort of catch up with, your Donald Trump's children, or any of these kind of things, right? So, of course, it gives you a little more mobility considered to this thing, but yahan pe also there is inherited wealth, there is unequal opportunities for every child, and it can reproduce inequality even in the next generation. But in comparison to the caste system of yesteryears, pre-independence and so on, this has more opportunities, more mobility possible. You also have estate and feudal kind of stratification. What is that? If you take the examples of medieval Europe, wahan pe the society was basically divided into nobility, clergy, commoners and so on. And commoners were basically the bottom, peasants. And these are the three estates. And different estates basically possess different kind of rights. I get to vote. So it's like India mein abhi, if you see na, one person, one vote. Wahan pe aisa nahi tha. All of you, 100 लोगों के लिए एक वोट, हमारे लिए एक पर्सन के लिए एक वोट. This is the kind of system that they had. So the nobility had more privileges. The clergy had more privileges. The ordinary peasants, very, very few privileges. You understand, no? So inequality was not merely economic. It also is more about status and political power and so on. So Max Weber basically had introduced that multi-dimensional understanding of stratification. Stratification is not only economic. It is about class, it is about status, it is about power. It's social, it is economic, it is political. And then you have slavery. What about slavery? Slavery essentially represents its extreme kind of stratification. Extremely rigid form. A human could actually be treated as my property, or I am somebody else's property. America mein, you had this plantation slavery. That means if you're a large farm owner, you have to have your enslaved people who are going to work 18 hours a day for very little kind of food and no rights whatsoever. Severely restricted rights and freedom. They're not considered to be equal human beings, even by law. So this shows the extreme end of stratification. Jahan pe inequality becomes itna direct domination hai. One person being owned by the others. You get the picture, right? So how would you structure this kind of an answer? Just again, structure ko simple rakhna hai. All of you wrote it really well. Introduction, define stratification your own sort of way. And in the body, you bring in caste or class and estate and slavery and so on. Use one simple kind of formula type. You rakh sakte ho. What is the meaning? What is the basis? Some examples, if possible, some scholar and some critical evaluation. This is how you would write this answer. If you can write this kind of an answer, it's an excellent kind of an answer. This is the first question. Now let's see if we can finish all questions today. May not be possible. Oh, we're almost out of time. But since we discussed this, your ethnocentrism and cultural relativism, how about we also do ethnocentrism and cultural relativism? ये हम अगले क्लास में करते हैं. Is that okay? Can you please go through this? Can I give you a timer? Just a structure. If you can give me a structure on your way of thinking, that is more than sufficient for me. Go ahead. RRN, you have finished the second question also. You finished the third question also? Okay, excellent. Cha, there is another student, AY. AY and others, in case you had some kind of issues in your prelims, na, okay, you speak to me. Okay, there might be something that is off. It cannot be that you guys are good at optional, which is a higher level kind of a subject, and prelims may you're having some kind of a technical or difficulty. Okay, prelims also is not only about knowledge. Knowledge, of course, is important, but it's also about understanding the nuances of the exam. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा you reach out for help, because sometimes ना you might be doing all the kind of effort but might be in something might be missing and you might need a external eye to be able to tell what exactly is the issue. ठीक है. AS says, sir, for the first 1.5 hours, I was trying to find out the chat section. Glad you addressed it in class now. Literally, I was very confused since the portal has changed a lot. Yeah, the portal has changed quite a bit. And I'm not that comfortable with the portal as well. I'm getting used to it. Actually, मेरा portal के लिए I don't have much work. ठीक है, you guys have the portal. I don't have access to it. RK social stratification, very well written. अच्छा, you are DAKN का sister. Oh ho. अच्छा. Great. Tell me your like how did you do your anthro? Have you followed mine or कि क्या है? What is your background so that I can get a picture? This is the same thing for everybody. ठीक है? Just tell me कि मतलब कहाँ से आपने anthro किया है? What is your source? ठीक है? And it gives me a perspective. मुझे पता है कि कहाँ से आपने किया है, तो मतलब what is going to be your anthro like, what is going to be your strengths, what is going to be your limitations, कहाँ पे क्या problem होंगे. I know all of those things. ठीक है? Just keep me posted so that I will be able to take you in the right direction. Okay, there you go. I'll avoid the sound. So I'll take RV. I believe you're the first one to answer this. It is going to be your introduction. You're going to bring in E.B. Tyler ka view, Franz Boas ka view, historical context, cultural context, separate headings, okay, examples, criticism of both, 2-3 point, conclusion. ठीक है, good. So मतलब you're trying to address this thing. Okay, so let's take a look at this particular question. पहले it's about understanding the context, understanding the demand, sorry, ठीक है. First, understand the keywords here. Let me see this question. What are my keywords here? Discuss the historical and cultural contexts that led to superseding ethnocentrism with cultural relativism. How did cultural relativism kind of replace ethnocentrism is how the question is asking. Uska historical and cultural context kya hai? So if I say keywords, this is my first keyword. ठीक है? If I say keywords, ठीक है? You know, मतलब cultural relativism is another keyword, right? And you have to understand, and then you have to also be able to evaluate it. Like historical context is another kind of a keyword. Where is the historical context here? Historical context and cultural context is also keywords here. Okay, so if I look at this particular answer, okay, the first keyword that I'm seeing is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, we said, it is judging another culture using your own culture standards. Okay, it is essentially you saying basically that my culture is better. Cultural relativism क्या कहता है? It means understanding a culture in its own context. ठीक है? So पहले उसको we have to explain it to our evaluator and then we have to kind of evaluate it. ठीक है? So historical context मतलब क्या है? What is the historical development that has caused this kind of a shift to go from ethnocentrism to cultural relativism? What are the cultural contexts that is basically moving us from ethnocentrism to your cultural relativism? Cultural context का मतलब ये है कि what discoveries about cultural diversity caused this kind of a shift? ठीक है? You understand, na? So you're basically explaining the journey from being judgmental of other people's and their cultures to understanding their cultures. ठीक है? So let's try to introduce this. So introduction में, ठीक है, early anthropology क्या है, right? It basically developed during the European colonial period. ठीक है? So naturally many of their early interpretations carried those kind of Western assumptions that we are the greatest. ठीक है? And we have this, the white man's burden. We have to go and civilize different kind of people. ठीक है? And things like this. But slowly what happened is that fieldwork took place and gradually it showed that societies, ठीक है, starting में what do they define societies as? ठीक है, they used to label them as primitive people, but the primitive people later we understood they also have very complex cultures and they have very meaningful kind of institutions. So that kind of pushed anthropology towards cultural relativism. You understand now? So पहले आपको explain करना है what exactly is ethnocentrism, then you have to kind of critique it. The first came the problem, which is ethnocentrism. Colonial powers basically divided societies into, and you will study this in theory or you must have studied this, right? So matlab savages and barbaric, okay, barbarism and then civilization. In every way, it is the Europeans who are the most civilized. Everybody else is somewhere here. पता नहीं यहाँ पे या यहाँ पे या यहाँ पे, but you're definitely not one of us. This term, ethnocentrism, was actually introduced by a scholar named W.G. Sumner. But it was actually practiced by whom? हमारे early anthropologist, E.B. Tyler and all the kind of early scholars. Okay, then comes your fieldwork up beginning. There is a rise of this scientific fieldwork that takes place. Okay, that essentially means what? The biggest change actually came when anthropologists actually entered the field. Okay, you're going to the people. For example, Franz Boas, okay, instead of being in that armchair anthropology, right? Instead of basically sitting, in some university in a nice cushioned seat, ठीक है, he's actually going to a very cold Inuit Eskimo का place, and वहाँ पे जाके he's living with them, studying them, participate कर रहे हैं, things like this. Malinowski, right? He actually went and stayed in the Trobriand Islanders for close to 2 years and studied so many things about them. उनका, how is their kinship, what is their Kula exchange like, and so on. People basically exchange these shell valuables, across different kind of islands. ठीक है, to outsiders, this could make very less economic sense. But Malinowski is like, everything exists for a reason. Kula exists because it created prestige, it created friendship, it creates alliance, it creates dependence. And dependence से ही हम यहाँ पे जी सकते हैं, survive कर सकते हैं. So fieldwork is basically how ethnocentrism was challenged. ठीक है? And that is an important thing. Then you have your emergence of your cultural relativism. Emergence of cultural relativism is Franz Boas. Boas basically rejected the idea that every society follows one evolutionary path. Everybody goes from, your savages to barbarism or barbarism to civilization. ऐसा नहीं है, ठीक है? So he wrote this, जहाँ पे, a very important book in which he is arguing that cultures जो हैं, they must be understood there, in their own according to their own history, according to their own kind of context. ठीक है? Historical particularism, that was his field, right? So this became cultural relativism. So instead of asking, why are you like this? Why are they backward? An anthropologist is basically asking, why does this practice exist there? What is the context behind it? And what does this practice mean to the people who are practicing it? So this basically shifted anthropology towards cultural relativism. It's a very important thing. Understood? ठीक है? This is basically the context here. And even, in fact, coming of age in Samoa, right? Margaret Mead, she was a student of Franz Boas. She was sent to Samoa. Theories में आप पढ़ोगे, ठीक है? She basically showed adolescent behavior could vary across cultures. So behavior is basically considered, whatever kind of behavior is considered natural in one particular country is considered not so natural in another country. You understand? What is good behavior here may not be good behavior here. So these are not universal kind of standards. It's very culture specific. So many scholars basically come, theories में आप पढ़ोगे, ठीक है? How anthropology, the whole field basically kind of, expanded. How did it basically kind of progress? What is the significance of this kind of change? The significance is that you're becoming a lot more sort of objective. You cannot basically go and study a person's culture जहाँ पे in your mind it's like, why are you backward? Tell me. कैसे? Right? Of course that person is going to be completely closed off. You have no respect for our ways. You have no respect for our culture. You have no respect for the people that you're trying to study and understand. You're not here to understand. You're here to judge. That's not the way to study. So fieldwork, when they had to do, and when they started connecting, when they started interacting, it brought cultural relativism. It made them more objective in their assessment. It made them more objective in their assessment of those kind of cultures. And that ensured from now on you can understand those cultures. Rather than, write about them in a descriptive and not very positive kind of manner. Right now, anthropology has become more useful. It is telling you not only why cultural elements or traditions or customs exist, but what is the context, what is the reason why it exists in that particular society. It's becoming more respectful. That is the main idea here. Overall, if you look at the conclusion, right, concluded in a manner jahan pe you're basically trying to give the essence of what you have discussed. So anthropology did not, simply discover other cultures or more cultures that you're studying. It changed how cultures were being studied, from ethnocentric way of studying to cultural relativist way of studying. Okay? So the entire academic discipline of anthropology has moved from just ranking different kind of societies into primitive and less primitive and more advanced, okay, to understanding how different societies are different and why they are kind of different. That is the real takeaway here. Cultural relativism essentially turned, these cultural differences from hierarchy or a ranking into a subject of human understanding and not ranking. You understand, right? So this is the main idea here. This, if you can write it in, you can write it in multiple different ways. You can use multiple different kind of words, but the main idea remains the same. E.B. Tylor, the classical evolutionists, their ways, and Franz Boas and anybody else, depending upon the length of the question. Okay, whatever you guys have given also is very good. I will go through whatever structure that you have given, but that's how you would write it. We will catch up in the next class, next session. See, overall, again, I want to emphasize this. Don't try to be perfect. Okay, just try to see if you can write an answer. If it is saying ki matlab 15 marker, just see if you can write 3 pages. If you can write 3 pages at this particular stage, it is great. It's a great start, and you can't imagine where you're going to be in 3, 4, 5 months. Understood, na? Okay, don't chase perfection. Okay, I will give you, the value addition ka material. You don't have to go through it at the moment. Just see to it that whatever is your material, and we will discuss, you can tell me your material. Okay, stick to that material and just develop the ability to write answers. Okay, I will have 1/3 of the questions that are doable, 1/3 of the questions that are thoda sa, it's not that easily doable, and the last 1/3 is going to be questions that may not be doable. Okay, I will help you do it. वो पढ़ लेंगे. So this is basically how it is going to be, ताकि I don't want to keep you only in your comfort zone. What is the purpose? Okay, you have to be pushed, you have to be challenged. Okay, blood, sweat and tears आपको feel होना है by the time we are done with this program. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I will see you guys in the next session. So until then, just enjoy social cultural anthropology. Stay busy, stay productive. I will see you later. Take care and bye-bye.